Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we're going to discuss Johan Rojas' 2024 and what the future holds for him with the Philadelphia Phillies organization. We'll break it down on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you live as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk radio space. I've been over on 97.5 The Fanatic, talking Philly sports on the radio for 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years, and this is also my third season as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies to keep providing you with good content. And subscribing to the YouTube will get you notifications when new episodes are posted. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, first and foremost, I do want to say, since it is October 31st, the final day of the month, happy Halloween to everybody out there. I am currently, if you're watching on YouTube, dressed like a hot dog because it was the easiest costume I could possibly find, considering my brother got married like 4 days ago, and I've been doing so much stuff surrounding the wedding. I just went to the costume store. I was like, hot dog's funny. I'll be a hot dog. So you could say that I'm a dollar dog since the Phillies banned them this past year, and I want him back. But that's enough about that. Hopefully you all have a wonderful Halloween. We're going to talk about something scary at the end of the episode, which is what happened in the World Series last night with the Dodgers taking down the Yankees comfortably in a 4-1 series win. But mainly our topic today is talking about Johan Rojas' 2024 season and what the organization's plans for him going forward are. So let's dive right into the young Johan Rojas' 2024 season and what he had going on this year at the dish. We know defensively he's a monster, but at the plate, he batted .243. He had 3 home runs. He's never going to be a guy that gives you power like that. But let's compare the numbers to 2023 and 2024. His age 23 season, by the way, this last one. He's now 24, turned 24 after the regular season. No, he turned 24 in the regular season. So he's 24 years of age now, but he started the season at 23 years old. So still a very, very young player. He's got a lot of opportunity to develop into a better baseball player overall. But because it's only 2 seasons, this is a nice, easy evaluation. We get to look at what he did last year, what he did this year, and how they stack up. So in 2023, Rojas played 59 games and had 164 plate appearances. Simply by the amount of playing time, you have to see this year as more successful. He played in 120 games, 363 plate appearances, 338 at-bats compared to 149 at-bats last year. Now, how did that work with almost a tripling or more than a doubling of plate appearances? Well, he didn't double his hits. He only had 3 more doubles. He had 12 this year. He had 9 last year. He had 1 more triple. He had 2 in 2023. He had 3 this year. And he only had 1 more home run. As far as RBIs, he had 9 more. He did have 9 more stolen bases. So 9 more RBIs, 9 more stolen bases, that's fine. He had 17 more strikeouts. 27 more strikeouts. I apologize for that. And only 8 more walks. So strikeouts were an issue for him. His batting average last year in the regular season was .302. This year, .243, significantly down. So the experiment with Johan Rojas was, let's see, over an extended sample size at the major league level, will he be able to put together that 302 batting average that you saw last year from him in 100-some plate appearances? And the answer was a resounding no for Johan Rojas in 2024. So much to the point, at one point in the season, he was sent down to the minor leagues to try and work things out because he just was not getting it done. Then he came back up a little bit later. He was significantly better then. He came back a more motivated player and everything like that. He was tearing the cover off the ball at AAA. So Johan Rojas is probably a major league player right now. I would imagine he's going to be on the major league roster as long as he's not moved, which we'll talk about coming up. He's probably going to – I would be surprised if he's in AAA. Unless you make a major move in the outfield, I'd be very surprised if Johan Rojas is down at all. I kind of see if he even has options left. But the point is, this is a guy that can play on a major league roster. He is not just a gold glove caliber defender. He's a platinum glove caliber defender. There's a chance that he could be one of the best defensive players in all of baseball when everything's all said and done. But is that enough if he bats 243 and strikes out a bunch and does not show pop? I don't think it is. Remember, I think back to guys like Ben Revere, lost names of those mid-2000 teen Phillies that hit for incredible average, but also fielded the ball incredibly. If you're not going to have power, you better hit for average. You don't just have guys at the major league level that play a premier position like center field. They can't hit. And right now, I'm sorry, all due respect to Johan Rojas, the guy can't hit. He had a solid season, right? By his standards, by what you should have been expecting from Johan Rojas, this was not like a major disappointment of a season. And he's going to be, if he's a starter on this team next year, the most low leverage starting position player, meaning that the least amount of the Phillies' success is placed on him, at least at the plate. Defensively, it could be the most. But what I'm saying is he's one of these kind of fringe starter depth piece guys. So I don't want to act like I'm ripping Johan Rojas apart. In his first full, not even full major league season because he was sent down, but his first extended major league season, he's still got so much to show, which is why the Philadelphia Phillies have said he's going down to Clearwater this offseason, not for the A-ball team, but no, he's going to live in Clearwater. They're going to put him on a hitting plan. He's going to work through a whole bunch of stuff. There were some things that I did see that I liked better from Johan Rojas this year. At the plate last year, especially in the postseason, he seemed just overmatched mentally. This year, he didn't seem overmatched mentally as much, right? He felt like he had confidence, and the results weren't there, but he felt like he was not afraid to go up there and swing. I think part of the way that he got to 302 last year was guys just weren't afraid to throw him fastballs down the middle. They weren't afraid to throw him anything. Now, they know his weak spots. So you're actually pitching to Johan Rojas. And part of that is the lineup was better for the Phillies this year. So you get into a situation where it's okay, we can't afford to let this guy get on. So you pitch him a little bit harder. And that's what happens when you go into the majors. You come up as a rookie. The respect level is on the floor because no one knows who you are. You have to earn that. Rojas somewhat earned that in 2023. And then this past year, well, he's reaped the benefits of having the respect of major league pitchers by seeing much tougher pitching when you get to that final spot in the order or wherever he was. Most often, the 9-hole spot for Johan Rojas. So they'll get him on the hitting plan. They'll see what he can be. I don't even truly know how to fully evaluate Johan Rojas' 2024 season because it felt underwhelming, but the bar wasn't really that high in a position that you didn't really think about all that much because he gave you great defense. I would say for Johan Rojas, I'm going to give him, I got sent down, but he made the team. He looked good at the start. I'll give him a C. I'll just put him average, right? I'm going to put Johan Rojas at a C for the 2024 season. I don't think he had a good season. I don't think he had a bad season. I think he was about what you should have expected from a young player that you have questions about being a hitter at the major league level. Played solid defense. Offense was where it was. This is what it is. Now, comparing him to the average major league center fielder, I'm going to put him at a D+. He was probably the worst everyday or close to everyday player for the Philadelphia Phillies when he was up on this team, right? And that's no knock. It's by comparison. Remember, there are all-star starters all over the place in the infield. Nick Castellanos has been an all-star before, and Brandon Marshall's a more proven major league player, and JT Realmuto's an all-star caliber player. Everyone on this team is good. So saying Johan Rojas was the worst of a really good team, and that's just the starters, is not a major knock on him. But D+ I think would be a good way to go compared to other major league center fielders because it's very rare you get guys at that position that can't swing it, right? You do every once in a while get guys that don't give you plus elite defense out there, but in center field, the bat almost always is there. Whether it's average, whether it's power, whether it's both. If you're a guy like Aaron Judge and who has a defense as well, he's the pinnacle of that position out there in center. But I look at it and I say below average center fielder by league standards, about average compared to what you expected him to be, which was that. the big question is, who is this guy as a player? 2 years in, you kind of have to make an evaluation of what you want to do with Johan Rojas, because you're in a contention window and there aren't many spots that you can move guys around at. So is it time to pull the trigger quickly on Johan Rojas and say, hey, we're starting someone else in center and you're gone, or you're benched, or you're in AAA? There's a lot of stuff that the Phillies need to figure out when it comes to Rojas. And we'll talk about what their plans could be coming up next as we continue today's episode. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Game Time. They're the absolute best. They're an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They got killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views for your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. It all makes it perfect. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more tickets. You can buy stuff: concerts, comedy, theater, NFL, hockey, NHL, NBA, college football, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you got to check out Game Time. Game Time picks help curate your options on the app. Makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that stuff I just listed. You can save even more with flash deals. They're exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals mean you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. And if you do the all-in pricing feature, you can toggle that in the app. It shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. How great does that sound? On top of that, you're going to get a panoramic view from your seat. You got a lowest price guarantee up to 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same row and section for less anywhere else. And you get some of the best ticket coverage in the business. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, but create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed, with our friends over at Game Time. So what is the organization's plan for Johan Rojas? It's a great question that I don't think the organization truly knows. Let's look at this. Let's try and break down all the factors, because we talked about this with Brandon Marsh yesterday. Also, if I start laughing at any point, it's just very hard to look at my screen and see myself as a hot dog trying to talk seriously about the future of Johan Rojas. But what are you going to do? Happy Halloween. So Rojas is a player. What does he need to do to be able to play center field at the major league level for the Philadelphia Phillies? Well, the defense is great. So the defense gives you a little bit of room to play lesser offense. That's just how the game works. If you add an asset in a different area, you can add less of an asset in a certain area. So does he need to bat 300? No. Johan Rojas, expecting him to ever be a 300 hitter at the major league level, I think is just absolutely baseless at this point. There's no reason for you to believe that Johan Rojas is going to have a season where he's a 300-plus hitter. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but that would be I think one day Alec Bohm could be a 45 home run guy. No. I think one day Christopher Sanchez could throw 104. No. Let's live in reality here. Johan Rojas' ceiling as a major league hitter is probably somewhere around the 270 to 275 mark. Even that would be more than acceptable for a guy that plays the level of defense that has the speed that Rojas has. What I need to see from Rojas is a batting average. If he's going to be there, he needs to convince his team that he can bat 260 or above, right? He batted 243 this past year. You add 17 points to that. It's not an easy task, but if you do that, that would be enough for me to be comfortable with him having a spot on this team. But it's also about how you do it. When you get out, do you advance runners? Do you become better at bunting? Now, I will say Johan Rojas' bunting improved over the course of the 2024 season. He got better at it. He got better at playing small ball. He was one of the few guys on the team that they liked to play small ball with because you kind of had to, but he got better at that. And as he progresses, he will continue to get better at that, I firmly believe, because that's going to be part of his game as long as he's at the major league level. Because frankly, he just doesn't swing it that well. So, buddy, you're going to have to get used to bunting. You're also going to have to get more selective with the pitches you're swinging at. Johan Rojas is still he does not seem to know how to diagnose major league pitching yet. And that stuff takes time, man. He's not like this top prospect that's, this is Jackson Holiday, and the second he hits Major League Baseball, you expect him to hit 340 bombs and all of this stuff because he's the top player in the draft from his class. No. He's a guy that came up because you needed defense. You wanted to see what he could give you. He stuck because the defense was pop off this field spectacular, and he hit a little bit last year. And now he's up against the wall trying to figure out if he's going to hit to that level ever again. I think the biggest thing that Rojas needs to focus on this offseason, again, pitch recognition and finding a way to put more balls in play so that not only does that average go up, because more balls in play equals higher average. Every single time. If you can significantly increase the balls in play, you can significantly increase your average. That's it. You're going to find gaps by accident. It's a funny game that way, baseball. And with his speed, Baltimore chop, one of those little like short numbers, well, he's going to beat those out more often than not. So that's where the average grows. Where the average shrinks is strikeouts, and pitch recognition and putting the ball in play eliminates strikeouts. I also think walks would not be bad for Johan Rojas because he's a bit of a menace on the base pass, sometimes to the Phillies, most of the time to the other team. He does have to improve his base running, and he's a player, right? He's crazy athletic. I'm going to tell you something that happens, and this happens at the major league level too, right? I'm going to compare slow pitch men's softball to Major League Baseball. And if you've ever played slow pitch men's softball or any of those like kind of adult league competitive sports, you may understand what I'm about to say. But normally it's a bunch of 45-year-old dudes, guys in their 40s and 50s that want to get away from their family and have a couple beers on a Sunday morning. But when you start playing, oftentimes you get like these guys right out of college or they've just gotten done playing hardball. They're like 24, 25 years old, in great shape, in their athletic prime or feel like they're in their athletic prime. And they do all kinds of dumb, aggressive stuff. I know because I was one of those guys. That happens at the major league level too. You get a young guy coming up, a 23, a 24-year-old, that's this crazy athletic, fast dude. And he wants to steal bases, and he wants to get jumps on pitchers, and he wants to cut down balls in the gap, and he wants to try and hit home runs sometimes, and he swings at pitches that he probably shouldn't have, or just hit balls in the gap because he doesn't necessarily have the power to hit the home runs. But like the stuff we see from Bryce Harper is being like running the bases I'm talking about right now. The aggressiveness we see from Harper is a clear, thought out tactic of like, I'm going to try and go get this extra base because I think it helps the team. For a player like Johan Rojas, it's purely, I'm fast. I'm going to go do it. Like, why not? I'm going to make something happen. And that's something you need to grow out of. You need to become a smarter player on the base pass. You need to become a smarter hitter at the plate. You just need to develop into the, oh, man, I'm not Superman anymore. You might have been at single A and double A and triple A. You might have been growing up, but at this level, you're going to have to learn to play the game the right way. And that's something that also needs to develop. And the only way that develops is experience. You don't just take that easily, right? You ever tried to tell a 24 or 25-year-old guy what they're supposed to be doing or how they're supposed to be acting? They don't really listen very well. Once again, I know because I've been one. So you kind of learn that through experience yourself. You get beaten down by the game of baseball enough that you learn how to play it the right way. And that's where good coaching comes in. And that's why I love that Johan Rojas is going to be down in Clearwater. But is all of this that we're talking about, all of this conjecture and all this what he needs to work on, good enough for him to have a spot on the team? It's a very similar conversation to what we said about Brandon Marsh yesterday. If you want to check out my evaluation on Brandon Marsh, you can go to our most recent episode before this one. But there are pretty much two spots on the field where you can make changes. Right field, Nick Castellanos had a great year, and his contract's tough to offload. Easy for you to say. And Castellanos we'll talk about tomorrow and determine how likely it is he's back. But I'd say it's more likely than not he is. It's more likely that he's back than Rojas or Marsh because of the talent level and the contract size. You're not moving Harper. You're not moving Stott. You're not moving Turner. You're not moving Bohm. You're not moving Realmuto. You're not moving like any of those guys in there. So there's two position players that could potentially not have their spot next year, and it's Marsh in left and Rojas in center. And we talked about Marsh being a Gold Glove nominee. Now, Rojas, if he had played enough games, would have been. He's a monster defender. But Marsh also showcases a little bit more of an upside as a hitter right now. We've seen him have incredible months. We haven't seen that from Johan Rojas. We've seen him have a couple of good at-bats strung together, but more often than not, it's just, is this guy treading water or is he drowning? Brandon Marsh just swam a little bit at the major league level, right? Like if Bryce Harper is Michael Phelps, Brandon Marsh has doggy paddled and Johan Rojas has just treaded water in place to make sure that he's not batting like 220, if that analogy makes any sense. So the same thing that we talked about with Brandon Marsh of like, if you're going to make a change for change's sake, Rojas is one of the easiest spots to do that. That's heavier for Rojas than it is for Marsh because of the lack of, not the lack of upside as a hitter, but less upside as a hitter compared to Brandon Marsh. And I know there's people out there that are like ripping their hair out saying, how could you say that Brandon Marsh, who strikes out all this much with more experience, has more upside as a hitter than Johan Rojas? Because he has power, folks, because he hits the ball out of the yard, because he can hit it gap to gap. That's a major component in today's game. Whether you agree in launch angle and hitting home runs and all of that stuff and exit velocity or not, organizations do. That's not changing anytime soon. It would be more likely that Johan Rojas is not the starting center fielder for this team, that Brandon Marsh is not the starting left fielder. But listen, I think both are potential changes. You could see changes in left and center, depending on who you're looking at available in free agency or potential trades. There's this guy, Juan Soto, that we might have a conversation about coming up when we talk about the World Series that could shake up the Phillies outfield if he does end up here somehow by the grace of God. Please, Lord, I've never asked for anything like this in my life. Anyway, so is Rojas in the long-term plans for the Phillies? No, I would say he's not. Now, could he be? Sure, he could earn his way into that, but I don't think the Phillies are looking at the next 5 years saying, well, Rojas is a piece. I think they're doing that with Stott. I think they could be doing that with Bohm. I think it's not likely they're doing it with Marsh, but I guess there's a chance. Rojas, I don't think there's any chance. And he's going to have to force his way into those plans. And if somebody comes up that can play center field, not comes up through the organization, but shows up through free agency or trade opportunity, Rojas is going to be very quickly a defensive replacement on this team. And that's reality. And then what he's going to have to do is he's going to bust his rear this offseason to work on all of his hitting drills down in Clearwater and become a guy that they trust to give at bats at some point. And when he gets those at bats, he's going to have to cash in. Or he'll be a young player with upside defensively and some upside offensively, minimal upside offensively, that gets moved in a trade this offseason. But Rojas' future is very uncertain with the Philadelphia Phillies. It's a shame because he's a young player, but that's part of what being a young player on a World Series contending team is. You're not getting paid much. You didn't produce. You're easy to move. You're easy to upgrade upon. Might be about that time. We will see. I'm not rooting for Rojas to not be on the team. I am a big Johan Rojas guy. You know this from last year, the start of this season, how much I defended him. But reality is he's one of the easier guys to replace in this lineup, and that could be a troublesome spot. Coming up next, the World Series is over. And so is baseball season officially. We're into the 2024 Major League Baseball off season. Can you believe it? Well, Phillies fans can because it feels like we've been here for pretty much a month already. But now on the final day of October, we're going to look at the World Series and what happened. And it's fitting it's Halloween because it's a little bit of a scary result. We'll talk about it coming up next as we wrap up today's episode. All right, so the World Series is over. The Dodgers handily beat the Yankees 4-1, a gentleman's sweep from the Los Angeles Dodgers. The National League pennant winners are now the winners of the World Series. It is their second in 4 years. They won the Bubble World Series in 2020, and they won this one in 2024, obviously. Now, the team's been more talented than that. They should probably have more based on payroll and talent, but who's going to get mad at 2 World Series in 4 years? The Phillies would kill for that type of production. I've seen one in my lifetime, and I'm 30. It's crazy. But here's the big takeaways from the World Series. First of all, Phillies fans, you should be happy. Phillies fans should be happy, right? Because could you imagine once the Yankees got down 3-0, right, and this series felt over, could you imagine if they made that comeback, how insufferable Yankees fans would be? I'm sorry, it's not every single Yankees fans. Some of my good friends, I grew up in New Jersey, like some of my good friends are Yankees fans. So I'm not saying like every Yankees fan is a terrible person. I hope you're all experiencing sadness. But I am always going to root against the Yankees if the other option is not like a team that I specifically hate. Like if it's Mets Yankees, I root for the game to be canceled. If it's Braves Yankees, I don't know, I'd probably have to root for the Yankees. But like short of a division rival, I'm going to root against the Yankees. So I'm happy with what happened with that. And you don't have to worry about the people from New York or New Jersey, seeing them constantly with their championship gear. So that's good. You keep the celebration over in LA. We ran through all of that. That's what the fan perspective is. But my goodness, from the organization's perspective, they are probably looking at this like, my word, we have our work cut out for us in 2025. The Dodgers looked dominant in the World Series. They were unbelievable. Freddie Freeman, I think, hit 72 home runs in the World Series. He was so good. They were down 5-0 in yesterday's game and came back in an inning like it was nothing. That team was just a juggernaut. They pitched well, they hit well, they fielded well, they ran well, they did everything well. They're a billion-dollar team, and they played like one in the postseason this year. What that means for the Phillies is you have now a scary looking opponent in the National League for next season. And we already knew this, right? Like, we came into the season saying Dodgers are a darn good team. Braves are a darn good team. The Braves were obviously taken out due to injury, but there was no surprise that the Dodgers were this good. What is going to be problematic is they're going to probably get better. Because if Shohei Ohtani comes back and pitches and adds to that rotation, remember, DH this year, if he goes and has a Cy Young caliber season in addition to having a 50-50 season at the plate, what in the world are you going to do to compete with that team? Not to mention, they're not done spending and they're not done building that roster, and they're going to retool and reload and maybe add and go out and do some more stuff in free agency because they have the money to do so, and they want to capitalize on this window with Ohtani, and they want to be this great dynastic team. That should be very scary if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan. And at some point, I think we may have to have the conversation, some point in this offseason when it strikes me, not today when I'm dressed in a hot dog suit because I don't want to cry, but looking back on the past two seasons and saying, 2023, 2022, I'm not talking about this year, like the years before. Those are some major missed opportunities. You had a lead in the World Series against the Astros, a team that I believe was better than the Philadelphia Phillies, but still. And then the Diamondbacks Rangers set up in 2023. That was your one. That might have been the only one. That might have been the window. Now, can the Phillies, like when you look at their team and talent level of the players and the pitching staff and all of this stuff that they have at their disposal, can they be as good as the Dodgers? Absolutely. If the Phillies were to play the Dodgers in a postseason series coming up this next year and knock them out, nobody would say, upset of the century. How in the world did that get done? Extra, read all about it. I sounded like an old-timey newspaper guy there when I was saying that. But my point is, no one's going to call that a major upset. Like, the Phillies are a nasty team. They're good. They're very, very good with the guys that they have currently on this roster, and they could upgrade this offseason too. So it's not, woe is me, our window's closed, there's no way we can ever compete. But it does feel like it just got tougher with the Dodgers coming to a point where they believe that they can do this. Not that they didn't before, but like Ohtani, that was his first postseason run. You're looking at Mookie Betts now has another ring, and he drove in the game-winning run in the final game of the World Series. Like Freddie Freeman, what he did, well, he's not just a postseason player, he's a postseason legend now for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He has, I think, tied for the most RBIs in a World Series in the history of baseball. Like, it was a dominating performance from a team that's not going away anytime soon. It has a lot of these guys locked down long-term, and now the prospect of how do you win the National League pennant and how do you knock this team out and how do you compete with the Los Angeles Dodgers juggernaut that has been built, and now they got a taste of the championship. They're going to want more. It's tough. The task feels tougher today than it did before the Dodgers took home the World Series trophy. And that's probably not totally true considering that series has been over for what feels like 3 or 4 days now. But it is a situation where the Phillies, if they're going to compete, they're going to have to be aggressive. If they're going to be aggressive, they're going to open themselves up to some risk long-term. And if they open themselves up to risk long-term and this doesn't play out, we could be looking at some rough times at some point down the road, but not for a while, as long as you have Harper and Turner and Wheeler and Nola and all these guys. But the National League, no doubt, runs through Los Angeles. They are the World Series champions in 2024. I guess go ahead and check out Locked On Dodgers for their reaction if you want to see people celebrating one of the great sports moments of their lives. But credit to the Dodgers. They were the best team in baseball this year. They deserved it. They were the top record. They were the top team. They ran through the postseason. The first round bye did not affect them. And now baseball season brings a tear to my eye almost. Baseball season is officially over, folks. Every major league team is now into the offseason. And it's time to turn our eyes towards 2025, which we've already been doing. But coming up on tomorrow's episode, it's the first day of November. So we're going to continue our evaluations, and we're going to talk Nick Castellanos, our final offensive starter, our final position playing starting player that we'll break down. It'll be a very interesting one. Majorly underrated season, a majorly underrated player. I got to back up my boy Cassidy tomorrow on our next episode. So check that one out. But thank you so much for joining us. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps us out. That's all for today's episode. So I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.